Good evening, everyone. It's now 7:00 p.m. We call the meeting to order of the Township of Mapleton Council on Tuesday, January 31st, 2023. If you're able, please rise for O Canada. And thank you. Any declaration of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Confirmation of minutes. Moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Tamlin, that the minutes of the Township of Mapleton Council meeting held on January 10th, 2023 be confirmed as circulated in the agenda. Any corrections or comments? All in favor? That's carried. We don't have any matters arising from the minutes and nothing under the Planning Act, which will move right to item number 7, which is a delegation from Heritage Funeral Homes. And Ken, I believe you're delegating again. Welcome, Ken.
Again, I'd like to thank council and your mayor for allowing me to be here as a delegation again this evening. I am here again to request consideration for the cost of the columbarium niches to be lowered from the 1765 that was discussed at the previous council meeting down to $1,500. For sale price, I do realize that that you as a council and as a municipality are looking for cost recovery. And I know that that the 1,500 isn't quite at that, but if council could just for a moment take a pen and a piece of paper, I want you to write some numbers down for me. So if we go with the $1,500 at the for sale price, you minus $225 for perpetual care. Now that perpetual care money is then invested by the municipality, and the interest from that perpetual care is used for repairs and maintenance in the cemetery. The columbarium is a very sturdy structure. It won't need as much care and maintenance as what regular plots do. That's why it's only 15% as opposed to 40% for plots. That gives us a total of $1,275. If you times that by 60, because there's 60 niches, that gives you $76,500 in income for sales. Now, the proposed budget or fee schedule has $200 for the opening and closing of those niches. That would be times 2. Now, I do realize that you can't just all of a sudden say that the $200 is all profit, because you do have cost of an employee and a truck being in the cemetery. So if you cut that in half at $100, so $100 times 120 times of opening up the niche, that's $12,000. So if you take the $12,000 plus the $7,650 gets you $88,500. Now, I do realize that that is a shortcoming from what the cost of the installation of that columbarium was at $106,000. We have a shortcoming of $17,500. But if you take that over the course of 8 to 10 years, for easy figuring 10 years, by the time you sell all of those plots, that's a loss of $1,750 a year. I'm quite sure that there are a lot of different areas in the municipality and we can't crunch all of our numbers, but you know what, at $1,750 a year, that isn't a large number when you think about the life of that columbarium. When the next columbarium goes in, there will be less cost in the fact of there will be less landscaping, there will be less building up because of the amount of prep work that had to be done to install the first one. So I do appreciate your time. Does anyone have any questions or thoughts of what I presented, of what we think is a comparable number for the columbarium?
Thank you, Ken, and thank you for providing those numbers and taking us through it. I've got mine all written down here. Questions for the delegation? Councilor Martin.
All M's, right? That's what we figured out yesterday. So I'm getting used to doing napkin math when you show up here, which is fantastic. But indulge me for a second. So I'm curious around, this seems like a passion project for you, which is really neat that you've come back here a third time, second time, third time. So, and I know you're the only, Heritage Funeral Home is the only funeral home in town. So what creates your particular passion for this niche and the prices associated with it? How does it go? Like, what's your relationship with the township? What's your partnership like when somebody, for lack of a better term, uses your service?
So when someone does lose a loved one, they will call us. We will then meet with them. We will then sit down and discuss what their options are. Now, when we're sitting down with them, they will look for, whether they're doing traditional or cremation. We're going to speak about cremation because of the niches that we're talking about this evening. And when we sit down with them, they'll say, okay, we're thinking about that we'd like to use a columbarium. What are the options in the area? And do you know what the prices are of the columbariums in the area? When they, and we are very upfront when we meet with a family, what our charges are, what any projected charges are going to be, whether it's through the municipality, whether it's through a cemetery that's privately owned by the plot holders. We go through what the cost of niches are or a plot, cemetery opening and closings, all of those things. So when we're sitting down with people, that's when they are starting to decide, okay, if they haven't already purchased something, that they're looking at and finding out where they'd like to have their final place of rest. So in regards to, that's where we're trying to gear towards making sure that the niche and columbarium in Mapleton and in Drayton Cemetery would be used and utilized, because you know what, they've done a great job of installing it. It looks great where it is. The landscaping has come together great, but it just would be disappointed if it didn't end up getting used because of a larger price difference when you could go up the 5 minutes up the road for something that's less.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Ottens, got it right this time.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor. Not really a question. It's just a comment regarding comparators. Bethesda is, in your report, it says 1,300, but Bethesda is 1,600 as well. If it's the top row, there's a lot of cemeteries columbariums seem to have different rates for bottom and top, and we chose not to do that. So as far as comparators go, that's fairly close then to Mapleton's proposal, and if you go in the opposite direction to North Perth or Woolwich, it's and Center Wellington, it's quite a bit more than what we're proposing. So as far as making Mapleton competitive by lowering the price, I think we've reached a happy middle here between the less expensive north, shall we say, and the more expensive south, and we're kind of in the middle. So we've given it a lot of thought and thought about it in a lot of different ways for many reasons, but I think we've found a happy middle ground here.
If I may, through you, Mr. Mayor, with regards to that, Marlene, yes, the average is 1,400 at Bethesda, but at the very bottom, it's $1,000 as well. So that's where we did the average because they have the tiers 1,000, 12, 14, 16. That's where we did the average and it's at the 1,400. With regards to you mentioning about North Perth and Center Wellington and Woolwich, those are still, if you were to go to Elora, that's 25 minutes, 20 minutes. Same with Elmira and North Perth. When I'm comparing Bethesda and Rothsay, Darriad Cemetery, they're still in Mapleton Township. Those are still only 5 minutes up the road as opposed to going outside of the community. And is there other things that when you're doing things in the municipality, when you're doing your comparators, do you compare with Center Wellington and Woolwich and North Perth? Or do you compare more to ones that are more similar in dynamics and demographics of, say, a Wellington North, a Minto, Mapleton type of comparisons? And that's where we're coming from of the demographics and the makeup of the communities.
Thank you. Further questions? Thank you very much for coming in again, Ken, and for providing this information. It's very good information. We do thank you for that and for answering the questions. Certainly, both questions very valuable and have certainly provided council something to think about. Thank you.
Just one question, Mr. Mayor. So when you get to the fees and schedules, if someone is thinking about making any kind of a change, it's at that time that
That's
is
correct.
okay. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thanks again for your time.
I do have a resolution here moved by Councillor Tamlin, second by Councillor Ottens, that the Township Mapleton Council receive for information the delegation of Heritage Funeral Homes, Inc. regarding a request to council to reconsider the sale price of columbarium niches as per the 2023 fees and charges bylaw. Any other questions or thoughts? All in favor of receiving this information? Has carried. We don't have any minutes from committees yet. We'll move on to item number 9.1 in the building department. We have to do the building department report for December month end. I have here a resolution moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Tamlin. Township Mapleton Council received building department report BD 2023-01 dated January 25th, 2023 regarding the bill December month end and year to date. Any questions or comments from council on this report? Then I'll ask the question. All those in favor of receiving the report? That's carried. Next, we have resolution 9.2.1 moved by Councillor Tamlin, second by Councillor Ottens, that Township of Mapleton Council receive for information clerk's report CL 2023-01 dated January 23rd, 2023 regarding the identification, removal, and prevention of barriers that affect electors and candidates with disabilities. Questions or comments on this report? Councillor Ottens.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. I just had one question. When in the report there was the option given that someone who is unable or unwilling to vote electronically or by mail and still can come to the municipal office to vote. Is that just within municipal office hours, or would there be like if they're a working person? I know, like, is there an option for them to come evenings or a Saturday to do that if that suits their schedule?
Through your worship. So our clerk Larry is usually here from 7 in the morning-ish to probably go to 6 o'clock in the evening. And although weekends are and evenings are sacred to staff, we are customer service focused, and if needed be, guaranteed that Clerk Wheeler would have made himself available to get the votes in.
And of course, is that one example in the report as well as one of our staff actually going out to a home to take that vote. So certainly it seems that the clerk's department is very amenable to trying to help the community in the best way they can. Further questions, comments? All those in favor then? Carried. Moving on to 9.2.2, moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Tamlin. Township Neighborhood Council received for information clerk's report CL 2023-02 regarding appointments to Mayor Pro Tem and members to township committees and conservation authorities for the new term of council, and that council consider the corresponding attached draft bylaw. Open it up for questions or comments. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question for you. With the Parks and Rec Committee looking to be down a couple people, what's going to be our process for trying to recruit for that? Is it kind of word of mouth? Do we run another posting process? What would be the appropriate?
So if you recall, coming shortly on the agenda will be the creation of a new committee. And if council so wants that new committee, we'll put out a new posting for both that new committee and for the Parks and Rec. If the new committee we're not doing, then we'll just do the Parks and Rec and see if we can recruit more people. So it will be a little bit of both, a little bit of word of mouth as well as the posting. Because we certainly do want to fill up and have the 5 members from the public, because it is a committee of council that we want to hear from the public. Thank you.
I know in the past, we've kind of gone after the different associations and user groups that are kind of part of that PRC umbrella, but is it safe to say that any interested party would be welcome to throw their name in the hat? They don't necessarily have to have hanging their hat on one particular association.
No, anybody can apply from the township. It doesn't matter who they are, as long as they're a resident of the township of Mapleton. Anything further? Then I'll call the question. All those in favor then? That's carried. And those people that have will be notified of their appointments to the committees. And we'll start those committees up very shortly. Moving on to item 9.3.1, moved by Councillor Tamlin, second by Councillor Ottens, that Economic Development Report ED 2023-01 dated January 25th, 2023 regarding 2022 Economic Development Year in Review be received for information. I'm going to turn it over to Ally.
So this is just kind of a overview of 2022. So in 2022, this is just a basic kind of update of where our social media channels are at with following. Facebook's still our main kind of outreach to our residents. It does have the most followers, and that's kind of really the main way we get interactions with residents. Then Instagram, since it's only photos, we kind of just put some photo stuff up, and Twitter, so it's pretty much just news and smaller ones that we get to, but you can see that in the amount of followers that we've gained on each of the platforms as well. So we have our CIP program, which is funded $20,000 a year through the economic development budget. And we have any businesses, there's a bunch of different things that they have to hit, but then they can apply to us for funding when they want to do updates and different things on their buildings. So this year or last year, we gave out $18,626.13 of the $20,000. And then in total, that was 43 or just over $43,000 invested in our community. So looking forward to 2023, we already have had 3 inquiries for funding. So that's awesome to look forward to for the next year. So we launched our digital Main Street again, 4.0. So we have Nelia still working for us. She's under a 2-year contract. She started this summer and she's still working. So the first round of the funding for 4.0 has closed in October. There was 4 of our businesses that received funding, and the second round of funding just reopened again. So if there's any businesses interested, they can reach out to Nelia, and we continue to post, and she continues to reach out to businesses on that. We had 3 grand openings of new businesses in the township. So we had Country Chic Aesthetics, Forever Country Grooming, and ACG Small Engine Repair, and they just happened to be in Drayton. But we had our farmers market again this year. So we had from June till September, the 1st and 3rd Wednesday. We had a few bad weather times in there. And we had 14 vendors that attended the markets over the season. We participated in the county farmers market trail and the county market bags and the market bucks. So we have met with our farmers market group, and we're looking at what we're going to do to kind of progress the market this year, and how we can make a bit more better attendance. There was a little bit less attendance to the markets than we would like to see, and then the vendors would like to see. So we're trying to figure out how we can make the market a bit better, to get that kind of a bit more traffic. And it looks like this year's market might be just a once a month thing, and might from May to September. And we're just reaching out. The interest was in the Ag Society fairgrounds. So we're just in talks with them about if they would allow us to host it there. So we hosted another Lockdown Love campaign last year in 2022 because we were still in a lockdown. And that just got our residents to share some great stories about our businesses. This year, we just started finishing our local love contest with Wellington North and Minto. And that contest really just got people to share great stories about anything in the community. So that was about businesses, individuals, healthcare workers, anything really. And we've seen some great stories come out of that. And that was a great way to just really support our whole community. And we really just wanted some good news and great stories to come out of it. So you'll see some of those. We had our Canada Day celebration and fireworks. I know some of you guys have seen this slide, but we had that come back this year. We worked with the Recreation Department and Mapleton Fire Rescue to have a great day of fun and some fireworks at the end. And it was a great crowd, and the rain held off just enough for the fireworks. So it was a great day, and we're looking forward again for next year, or this year, I guess. We had the water tower raising events, which had a great turnout. There was from young to old, lots of people really enjoying it, which is great to see people really invested in our infrastructure in the community. We hosted our first welcome reception. So we did originally look at doing 3 welcome receptions, one in each Alma, Moorfield, and Drayton. There wasn't the uptake in it to have one in each downtown. And that was a lot for our local service groups and our community groups to come out to all 3 of them. And they really wanted to kind of attend all of them. So we ended up just condensing them into one event in Drayton, but it was a great night. Lots of people through. There was over 35 of them. And then a few people, since we moved the dates, that we ended up just dropping off bags. Great feedback. All the service groups, all the feedback we heard was great. So we're looking forward to hopefully doing that again and welcoming some new residents over the next year. We participated in Culture Day. So we had just a few different events and reached out to some different providers in the area. So we had Mapleton's Organics, Mapleton's Martial Arts. We had some beading workshops, cookie workshops, some different things through September 23rd to October 16th that just got people in the community out doing more activities, which was great. And then last but not least, we installed the mural in Drayton. As you can see, it's a beautiful mural. We've gotten lots of great feedback on it and some different people tagging us, but that was our 2022 in a nutshell. And if you have any questions.
Thank you, Ali, for sharing that. Certainly had a good 2022. And I do love that mural downtown. It looks really wonderful. That and the colorful water tower and what we're doing in the other communities when it comes to, putting up the Christmas decorations in Alma. That's looking really fantastic. And all the signage we're doing, we've done some fantastic work the last number of years, and certainly appreciate the work from economic development. The questions for Ally on this? Thank you, Ally. All those in favor then receiving this information? That's carried. Thank you. And next we have item 9.3.2 moved by Councillor Ottens, second by Councillor Tamlin. Township Mapleton Council received Economic Development Report ED 2023-02 dated January 25th, 2023 regarding Mapleton business visits, and further that council approved the Mapleton Business Visits Initiative. Ally, you're on again. We're going to talk about the Mapleton business visits. It's a lot of words in there. But I know it's something we've been trying to do for the last number of years, and I'm certainly glad we're going to be doing it in 2023. Please go ahead.
Yep, so this is really just to get myself as well as council and our committee out into our business community and really get to know our business community, get to know what they need from us or would like from us, and just see what their impacts are for Mapleton. So we thought just doing a monthly visit to a wide number of businesses. So we would get 12 done this year. In that we would just reach out to businesses unless businesses have reached out to us wanting us to do a visit with them. So that included, we would just kind of open the forum to them to give a space for them to openly talk with us and see what they would like to see from us, from council, from our committee, and really how we can help them. And then we would hopefully do like a little tour of their facility and see what they're doing for our community, because our businesses are amazing in the community, and there's probably lots that we don't even know are in the area and what they're doing for our community. So.
Thank you, Ally. And the businesses, we have lots in our downtowns, but we have a lot out in the rural community as well. I know last year council was able to go visit a dairy farm, which was a good business opportunity to see that dairy operation. And I really appreciated that. And we'd like to see more of the operations on farm businesses as well. Questions then from council or comments on this initiative? Councillor Ottens?
Yeah, just a quick question. Thanks. If we have an idea for a business, can we just message you? Was that how you would like that to work, or?
Yep, for sure. I was just going to create kind of a list of it. So I talked to Minto and Wellington North to see kind of what they did. And Wellington, I know they both kind of do some kind of business visits. Wellington North just does it with their 6 business or largest businesses, and they all meet together. And Minto kind of does a general business one, and they do anybody that employs over 15 people to kind of get a really good sense of the business. But I think we would like to do a very big mix. So there's probably businesses. I know we have our business listing, and we really try and keep that up. And I'm going to go through that and try and click a very wide range. So if you have a suggestion, they're definitely welcome to send it my way. And then I'll probably just reach out to a number of businesses in a chunk, see when we can schedule them in, and then go from there.
Thank you. Anything else? I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Ally. We look forward to those visits. Next item up is 9.4.1 moved by Councillor Tamlin, second by Councillor Ottens. That Township Mapleton Council received finance report FIN 2023-02 dated January 5th, 2023 regarding the 2023 interim property tax levy. And further that council approved bylaw 2023 draft being an interim bylaw, tax bylaw. Mr. Morrison, would you speak to your report, please?
Through you, your worship, this is a standard report at this time of the year so that we may bill the interim tax rates. It's 50% of the prior year levy, and the installment dates for your review is for the interim and final are listed on the report. They are pretty standard to these due dates in previous years. And in each case, we're giving residents at least 2 business days grace before any interest and penalty is being imposed upon them.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. Any questions on this report from council? I'll call the question. All those in favor? It's carried. Moving on to item number 9.4.2. This is moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Tamlin, that Township of Mapleton Council receive finance report FIN 2023-03 and one, authorize a temporary borrowing if required, a maximum amount not to exceed $4,729,970 from January 1st, 2023 to September 30th, 2023, and $2,364,985 from October 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2023 to meet expenditures of the municipality until taxes are collected and other revenues are received. And two, that the township maintain an existing $2 million line of credit if needed from the Royal Bank of Canada. And three, that the treasurer report to council in advance of any new temporary borrowing arrangements if required. And four, that staff be authorized and directed to do all things necessary to give effect to this resolution. Mr. Morrison, anything to add?
Through you, your worship, no, this is just a standard bylaw that we pass each year. It should be seen more as an insurance for unforeseen events in case we need to draw upon a line of credit. For the last few years, 5 years that I've been here, we've never once used the line of credit at all.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. Any questions from Mr. Morrison then on this report? And I'll call the question. All those in favor of this report? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 9.4.3. This is that moved by Councillor Martin, second by Councillor Reed, that Township of Mapleton Council received finance report FIN 2023-04 regarding property tax write-offs in 2022 as information. Mr. Morrison.
Through you, your worship, as the report points out, we're writing up to close to 300K off the tax rolls. Most of those write-offs have little or nothing to do with the local township here. It is errors or corrections made by the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation. Council does have discretions with respect to 357 and 358 applications, which we had a total of 12. And we did waive the taxes because in each case they amounted to, in most cases, an assessment related issue. So Impact would have provided us the assessment, they would have provided us the valuations, and we would just have gone through the motions as if they had managed to get their minutes of settlements in the proper due course of time. The biggest area here is just, again, the tax incentive approval for farm applications, which is always an ongoing issue of lagging applications to catch up to the tax rolls. So it's just informing council as to what happened last year in terms of the tax roll.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. So questions to Mr. Morrison then on this report? Councillor Tamlin.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. John, I'm just wondering, is that figure of adjustments kind of similar every year, or is that like a bigger number? And I was also wondering, when you have the tax incentive programs or conserve lands or managed forests, when things are adjusted, then is that considered when taxes or the OCI funding formula, like when it comes back to the township? Does that make sense, that question? Like,
Your worship, the first part of the question would be that the amounts could vary each year depending on the issues that were missed or not tackled in time. So MPAC will, in a normal course of a reassessment, provide the notices to the citizens. And those notices go out and then they say, you must reply to us by X date. And then we get a lot of minutes of settlements, notices of adjustments. A lot of post-roll stuff comes in based on that regular reassessment and the corrections that are going on as citizens are knowing that there's an issue with their tax bills. the municipality under section 357 and 358 is like a catch-all. In case everybody misses all the deadline, just go to the local municipality and we'll deal with it. And that's when you start seeing the same reasons that they could have done if they caught it in time, happening under 357. Now, the biggest issue here in this township, you don't usually see it in a larger municipality, is the incentive program for the farming community. And that's because the farming community is busy in the summer. They probably get some sort of notice from the Corporation trying to maintain their farm status. They do the paperwork. They might be a little too late, or who knows, AgriCorp might be too slow in processing it. And by the time the roll runs around, then we get these paper back from AgriCorp say, well, you know, they really are exempt. They sure are a farm, and we better reduce their taxes. And that's sort of an ongoing issue. Last year, it was a much higher number than it is this year. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. Any other questions? Comments? Then I'll call the question. All those in favor of receiving the report? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on to the next item, item 9.4.4. This is moved by Councillor Reed, second by Councillor Martin. That Township of Mapleton Council received Finance Report FIN 2023-05 dated January 25th, 2023 regarding the 2023 fees and charges bylaw. And further, that council approved bylaw 2023 draft fees and charges bylaw effective February 1st, 2023. Mr. Morrison, anything to add to this at this point?
Through your worship, I have at this point nothing further to add other than to remind council that this is it's an important item in the budget. It represents almost 25% of our own source revenues. And as we'll be discussing, own source revenues is quite an important concept as we talk about financing a lot of the capital and other financial pressures as we're going to be facing over the next 5 years when we start talking about the asset management report.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. So I'll open it up to questions then from council members or comments or suggestions. Councillor Ottens.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Going back to the cemetery thing on page 65, I just wanted to clarify something. We agreed a number of years ago that opening and closing a grave for a child would be free. That was a service we chose in Mapleton to offer as a compassionate element. So I just wondered, with the way it's written here, does that automatically extend to opening and closing the columbarium niche as well? Or does that have to be clarified as a separate line in here if we're going to extend that same service, which I assume we would?
Mr. Barron.
We can ensure with the motion that the wording is appropriate and defines exactly that for and so that it reflects the columbarium as well.
Further questions, comments? Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That was a good catch. I never even caught that on the child, right? So, but while we're on Schedule C, just to reflect back to the Thompsons ask about the niche rates. I was thinking about asking for Director Morgan to create a report around this, but I bet you any money his costing is going to come up right where Director Morrison's are as far as the rate goes. So I think that's probably a futile exercise and would just kick this conversation down the road a little further. I do think that the Thompsons are, for lack of a better term, subject matter experts on this particular field. I think we rely on people and their expertise within the market to kind of see what the market will dictate. I appreciate the market comparisons that Councillor Otten was talking about, but we don't typically go Center Wellington, Woolwich very much. We do tend to stay up with Wellington North and Minto. So I think the comparators that were listed are pretty fair. And not to sound like, work with me here for a second. I don't mean to sound crass, but if we look at the Parks and Rec fees schedule and the different user groups, which we're going to talk about the Legion here in a second too. But if we talk about the rates, the hall rentals, for example, that I know minor hockey takes advantage of. I know the Optimus Club takes advantage of for their, essentially what the Thompsons are suggesting with my napkin math is essentially $265 subsidy from the cost of $1,765 to get down to $1,500. Hall rentals range from $300 to almost $700 that we hand out very quickly, very easily. And again, I'm not trying to compare the resting place of human remains to a hall rental, but if we're talking overall just numbers and subsidies, I think it's a pretty fair request, especially when we look at our market comparators. But then the technical question is, can I make a motion to support a $1,500 niche when we've already had a motion just at the last meeting? How does that work? Because I'd be prepared to do that if I can.
Right. So if I remember correctly, Mr. Barron, the motion that we had before and voted on would we'd have to reopen up that discussion and then change it. It's good question. Yeah. I believe we open up the previous question, not a new one.
So to have
we
to make a
can- we
motion
can
to reconsider, is that? would that be
reconsider the
proper
previous
process?
question. Yes.
So you just texted him or he texted you? Okay. Yeah, so then I guess before I move on to my other question, I would like to make a motion to reconsider.
All right, so Councilor Martin has put on the table a motion to reconsider a previous decision made by council. I need a seconder for that. Councilor Reed. Okay, so we have a seconder for that to open up the discussion. So I'll need a vote on this then. Any discussion on this vote? I don't think we need a discussion on it. It's a motion to open up the previous discussion. So it was moved by Councilor Martin, second by Councilor Reed. So I'm just going to call the question. All those in favor of opening up the previous question, regarding the fees for the columbarium prices. All in favor of opening it? All right. So now we'll go back to that discussion. We've now opened that back up. Councilor Martin, I put it back to you then.
Yeah, thank you. So I think it would be an acknowledged subsidy, right? We've got down to $1,765 by dropping the contributions to reserves, was how we got from the original price down to $1,765. So by going below that, we obviously reach into we're in a negative, right? So we'd be subsidizing that that particular cost. I think it's important that we're stewards of the money that we have and the resources that we have, but I think this one makes a lot of sense for me. It keeps us competitive. I don't think there's any commissions or anything like that the Thompsons have any kind of skin in this game as far as that goes from a business side of things, unless I'm wrong, but I don't believe so. So I think this is, it's for me, it feels like a good number. I don't disagree with Marlene's sentiment that she had last meeting either, about to get to 1765, but I would land at 1,500.
Okay, now we've already opened up the previous discussion. Do you want to put a motion on the floor now to change that number?
Sure. So I would like to propose a $1,500 fee for niches, columbarium niches.
Okay, Councilor Martin has put on the floor the change of the fee to $1,500. And I need a seconder for that. Councilor Reed has seconded that. Okay, we open up the discussion then for $1,500 to change the price of $1,500. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Reed?
My thoughts had been very similar to Councillor Martin's when thinking about it more over the last little while in regards to, again, not comparing columbariums to uses of other spaces in the community, but it is, but it is something I thought of too, because the same with halls, when we're using those spaces, we are subsidizing those groups to be able to do that. And columbariums, obviously, we want people to be able to have their family members be local, and we don't want them to have to go to a community that they want to and have lived and supported their entire lives.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. Further comments and questions? Not seeing anything. Then I will call the vote on to change the niche fee to $1,500 as proposed by Councillor Martin and seconded by Councillor Reid. All those in favor of moving the price to $1,500? Anybody opposed? And that's carried, so it'll be $1,500 will be the price then for the columbarium niche. So that's a change. And Councillor Martin, you had another change?
This one's actually a question and maybe a change. So can someone remind me what we decided about the Legion as far as being a legit user group of the PMD? Is that something we were gonna add and it's just an oversight, or do we need to add it today?
It's an oversight on the page, I believe it is. So thank you for bringing that up. I don't think we voted on it last time, though. I don't think it was actually made as a motion. So if someone could put it on the floor as a motion to change it, and then we will actually change it.
I would then make a motion to add the Drayton Legion to the service organization group under Schedule I.
Thank you. Councillor Martin's got a motion on the floor to add the Drayton Legion to the user groups that do not pay for our use of our halls. I need a seconder, please. Councillor Ottens, thank you. Any discussion on it? Then all is in favor of adding the Legion? That's carried. Anything further from council?
Knowing that these are related directly to the fees above, obviously that's why Alma Optimist and Alma groups aren't included, because they use the Alma Hall, which isn't listed in these fees and services.
Anything further? Councillor Martin?
One last question. It's around the minor sport ice rental fee. So not looking to change anything tonight, but just in the event that we were to need a non-resident minor sport rate, is that something that we would anticipate? Like we could change this fee and charge bylaw or make an addition? And the reason I bring it up is there's been lots of scuttlebutt around the last little while about an out of town sports organization thinking that the Drayton Arena is underutilized and trying to take advantage of that. I think there's a kind of ongoing discussions around that, but I know other centers have, I believe Minto does a non-resident rate. Because obviously the minor sport rate, a lot of these rates are, you could argue, even subsidized, right? Beyond the true cost of what an ice rental is. So if we were going to enter into contracts from out of town organizations, is that something we'd be able to revisit, or do we just leave in the hands of staff?
At any time, we can revisit that kind of fee. If we have open ice, I certainly want to see it being utilized and not, we pay staff to be there. We pay to have the ice in and the building open. So if there's open ice, I would hope that we could rent it out. We can ask at this point if Councillor Martin, if you want, we can have the Public Works Director do some research on non-resident fees around our area to see what those are and come back to council with that. Is that something that council would like, or just leave it? That's up to council. But if we would like to have a report to look at what fees are in other jurisdictions of non-resident fees. Council Martin.
I'm happy to leave it as it is for now.
Thank you, Council Martin. I know that our user groups, not everybody is from Mapleton, regardless of the user group that uses it now, whether it be hockey or figure skating or reach forth or any other group. Any other changes, additions to the fees and charges? There is one other change that we might want to consider is the firefighters association to that grouping of organizations that do not pay for the hall rentals. That's not on there as well. Chief, do you think the firefighters would be able to benefit from that?
Yeah, I had always thought that our pancake breakfast and turkey bingos were included in that list, but I didn't know that they weren't.
It's just not, we don't, we probably do it, but it's not as one of the listed. We probably just do it off.
I think we
But,
were charged for the pancake breakfast this last year.
So if council's indulgence, I'll put a motion on the floor that we include the firefighters association and seconded by Councillor Ottens. Anybody got comments or questions on that? Councillor Ottens?
I'm just curious, I mean, I'm in favor of that, but are the firefighters not automatically included under township? Like if the township uses the hall, then obviously there's no fee. So is the fire department not a town?
The association is separate to
Oh,
the
that's separate, okay.
firefighters, so they have their own association. Any comments, questions? All in favor adding the firefighters association? And that's carried. We'll add that as well. Anything further? Council Martin.
Is there two associations or one?
I'll add both of those. I'm sure the clerk online is jotting all this down feverishly to make sure, and the clerk here as well. Any other changes, additions, comments on fees and charges? As Mr. Morrison said, it represents about 25% of our income, so we need to make some changes. It's a good time to do so. Not seeing any changes or any hands to speak to anything. I'll read this again, moved by Councillor Reed, second by Councillor Martin. The Township Mapleton Council received finance report FIN 2023-05 dated January 25th, 2023 regarding the 2023 fees and charges bylaw. And further, that council approved bylaw 2023 draft fees and charges bylaw effective February 1st, 2023 as amended. So I added that last two words in there, as amended, as we have amended it. Anything further then? All in favor? That's now carried. Thank you. Thanks for the discussion, everyone. Moving on to item number 9.4.5. This is moved by Councillor Martin, second by Councillor Reed. The Township Mapleton Council received finance report FIN 2023-06 dated January 25th, 2023 regarding the operating budget 2023 and capital budget 2023 to 2032. And further, that council approves the operating budget 2023 and capital budget 2023 to 2032 bylaw. Mr. Morrison.
As this is the final bylaw, as I would point out to council, the tax increase represents about 3.89% per 100,000 or $18.41. And that's about it right now.
Thank you. Now I'll open it up to council then for questions and comments. Anything? Councilor Martin?
Sorry, I'm just waiting on my PDF to open up. So I guess one last time, because this is the last time, I'm just curious if there's been any discussion or possible solutions proposed around mitigation of the 7% wage increase.
Mr. Barron?
Through your worship, we've talked about it at length among senior staff. And I will say that when the policy, we're at the mercy of council, the mercy of policies, and we follow with open arms the policy as it set out. Last year was 0. Several municipalities did more than 0, some of them within our township. As you've no doubt experienced, maybe in your own workforce, but certainly our township here, we are losing employees to surrounding municipalities, and not just for a few dollars, but considerable tens and thousands of dollars. So from a CAO perspective, although I do appreciate the dollars that are being spent on staffing, we I think as a team, as an overall team of employees, have demonstrated quite well that we do indeed value our ratepayers for presenting 3 years in a row of 0% budget increases. In fact, with the growth involved, we were from a municipal perspective negative, less than 1%, but regardless, you can call it 0. Staff have worked extremely hard over those last 3 years. Staff continue to get things downloaded from the provincial level, from the GRCA, from various levels of government. And we truthfully have not expanded staff, maybe a position here, there, but really no expansion. But the workload has definitely burdened, you know, our valued staff. So if we take away the number of 7% and put it into dollar value, that would mean there's $155,000 over 2 years, essentially, or 3.5% per year over the last 2 years. My fear for the leader of the administration, if we don't follow policy at this time, is that the disparity between our competitions, the people that want our people, because we do hire the right people, versus what we can pay, is getting greater and greater. And I think that puts us at a disadvantage, not only for attraction, but certainly retention. So with all due respect to you, Councilor Martin, we talked about it, but feel that perhaps there doesn't need to be a solution provided. As we followed the policy last year, we followed the policy this year. That being said, whatever council decides, we would happily go with. But I think our staff deserve it.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. Further comments, questions? Councilor Martin, I'll go back to you again then.
Yeah, so I mean, your comments are all fair. It's really got nothing to do with deserving or not deserving. I think if you're talking market comparators, you know, there's avenues for that too, right? If you're talking retention, I know policies are the policy, but you know, whether we enter into a technical recession or we don't, I mean, the numbers that came in today aren't super fantastic, but you know, I would suggest that even with, you know, a policy like we have, if 2023 we do enter a recession and we do go into the negative, we're not going to do wage cuts, right? Despite what the policy would suggest, right? So I understand the policy, but I also think there's limitations to policy, and like we've kind of bantied around ad nauseum, you know, I don't think when this policy was created that we would ever hold to a negative in a recession or that we were ever contemplating a 7%, right? I also know that the federal employees with the CRA are looking for 30% over, is it 3 years or 4 years? There's lots of private sector employees getting double-digit raises. Region Waterloo is not one of them. On the public side, the options are all over the place. There's some places that are, proposing mitigation strategies. Other places like the county just have a straight number. So I think there's lots of different options. It's just, for me, 7% is no reflection on the people we have. I know it can be interpreted that way simply even with this conversation coming up. But it's more of it's a big number.
Thank you, Councilor Martin. Any other comments, questions? Councilor Ottens?
Thank you. Through you, I agree with Councilor Martin that 7 sounds like a lot, but when you look at it retroactively, when it was 0 before, you're kind of making up for that. So it's not really, I mean, it is 7, but if it had just been a 2% increase all along, then this year might not have been as high, or would it have still been 7? It's just the cost of living, it would have been 7 regardless, but then it seems higher, but when it was 0 for a couple of years, it seems like we're just making up for lost time. So I'm okay with it.
Thank you, Councilor Ottens. Any other comments and questions on the budget, whether it be this or something else? I'll ask again before I read the resolution again. Any other questions, comments on our budget? So moved by Councilor Martin, second by Councilor Reed, that Township Mapleton Council received finance report FIN 2023-06 dated January 25th, 2023 regarding the operating budget 2023 and capital budget 2023 to 2032. And further, that council approves the operating budget 2023 and capital budget 2023 to 2032 bylaw. So I'll ask one more time before we vote on this. Any other questions, comments? Any notices of motion? All those in favor then of and opposed? Thank you. That's carried. Moving on to item 9.5.1. Second by moved by Councilor Reed, second by Councilor Martin. The Township Mapleton Council received information fire report FR 2023-01 monthly communique. Chief, over to you.
Sorry. This is our monthly communique. We do to update the council and also our own members, because we want to make sure they're all kept up with what we're doing every month. So in December, we only have one medical training thing. It was a medical training that we did, CPR and defibrillation updates, keeping everybody inside and warm and kind of doing some medical training. We did no training last 2 weeks of December. We did have a social for our firefighters. The two stations got together at the Optimus Hall in Moorfield, and we had a meal and shared some fellowship there. We presented all the firefighters with a metal ring. You see at the bottom of the communique there. It's one that we had made up for the fire department, and somebody did a model of it and was reasonably priced. So we ordered 44 of them and got them distributed that night too. I think they're really appreciative. They can hang them anywhere they want, outside their house, in outside their garage, or the end of the laneway, whatever they want. One of the most rewarding things we did every year, up to except for the last 2 years because of COVID, was we had a shop with a cop. Was it's actually a shop with a cop and firefighter. We changed the name. It's done in other places where the police will go with a school, and they'll have 2 or 3 students in each group, and so much money is donated from the residents of the town. I think we had over $2,000 per group, and there was 13 groups, so a lot of money was put into the thing. The kids had an hour to go around the grocery store. The teacher had in the last year taught them on food values and right choices for food, and looking at the pricing and trying to get like 201 product, 300 product, and to keep under $100 at the end was their goal. And I think the winning group got $99.70, so it was pretty close. Our deputy chief was second, but he came close. And so they took all these groceries from the food market to the food bank, which is at the back of the Reformed Church. And as you can see in the left-hand side, all the food all filled up one big room. And the food bank was very happy to see that happen because they were down on donations in the last half year. And then we had a collection of the December calls. We had only 10 medicals and 6 MVCs in the month of December. More medicals than more vehicle collisions because we found that a lot of times during December, the ambulance was not in Drayton Station like it normally is stationed from 8 to 8. There's a lot of, as you see on the news, there's a lot of offloads, a lot of people sick, not coming for work at 8 o'clock in the morning, and the cars were not there to bring people that brought people in to have those ambulances available. So we're getting a lot of more calls to be first responders to get there when there's no ambulance available. So that's kind of a brief little thing of our December.
Thanks, Chief. Any questions for the chief on the monthly communique? Certainly looks like a lot of food there, Chief. Very good. Councilor Martin?
This is a question that's not really fire department related, but more food bank. I noticed, obviously, you just talked about the amount of food that went towards the food bank. So this is a question of ignorance. Who runs the local food bank? And is this something we could do like a better job of promoting? Is it a service that's utilized a fair amount locally or?
From what I know of it, it's at the it's located in the Reformed Church, but a lot of churches get involved with the organization of it. I know the guy that's in charge of it this year. They rotate that around who's in charge of it. They have had times where the thing is like we went there other years with the shop with the cop where there's nothing inside, like 5 boxes of cereal literally and some soup. And this year there was a few things on the shelf, like it wasn't too bad, but they have a big need for it. There was, I think he said 36 different families taking advantage of the food bank around Christmas time. So it got well used for sure. But as far as, Marnie can probably answer who the organization is.
Councilor Ottens?
Yeah, I can add some clarity to that. So the Reformed Church started the food bank back in the 80s, I believe. And that's why it's located there, not because they're creating any ownership of it, but we had space and it started there and it still works. So if another space opened up, more of a public community oriented thing, I'm sure we'd be happy to turn it over to that, but that's never happened. The head of the food bank is always one of the deacons from the Reformed Church. They take turns doing that. So there's always one of the deacons, but there is, as Rick said, there's like a committee and volunteers from the church and the community. When they put out a call, sometimes on Facebook, it's time to pack the hampers. Random people will show up to help with that. It's, as you know, like the pile of food that Rick showed, that all needs to be organized and sorted, and then you have to pack it in hampers, and it's a big job. But it is typically run by the Reformed Church.
Thank you. And it's a great service that we have in the community, and certainly glad we have someone to run the food bank and the volunteers that help out throughout the year. And certainly grateful for the shop with the cop, with the firefighters and the police working together with the students and going and boxing up all this food. So there is that need, as the chief pointed out, 30 odd families using it in December. So certainly is the need in the community. And as Councillor Martin pointed out, if the recession comes in at any point next year, you might see that number go up. So certainly a need in the community, and I'm glad we have it. Go ahead.
Just to add to that, the food bank also, it's unusual, or maybe not so much anymore, but it has a freezer and a fridge and everything. So people will bring frozen meat and refrigerated items. And they really push heavily now as well as non-food items, because that's a big expense when you're struggling financially. So diapers, feminine products, toiletries, all that is in there. If you ever want to see it, I mean, it's no big deal. I can show you. It's easy to access. So if you ever want to
Maybe we add that to the tours that we're doing of businesses
to
and
the
then add
tour.
that to the.
I've
Alley's
taken
job.
my Sunday school kids in it too, because some of them are in this church every week and they've never seen it. And I'll just say, well, let's go then. It's just something to see. So if you ever want to, let me know.
Thank you. Anything further on the communique? And I'll call a question. All those in favor of receiving it for information? It's carried. Moving on to item 9.5.2. Moved by Councilor Martin, second by Councilor Reed, Township of Maplewood Council receive for information fire report FR 2023-02 Fire Department Year in Review 2022. Chief.
Okay, this is kind of like the communique only expanded for the whole year, but we do have, of course, the incident reports giving a total of all the types of calls went to last year and motor vehicle collisions. We've kind of included industrial accidents in there too, because we had 3 or 4 of them last year and a couple not so good ones. And but motor vehicle collisions during the blizzard and I guess 3 weeks before that when we had another episode with roads being closed and not being able to get to people. They took up the biggest share of our calls. Medical assistance to ambulance, that's a little bit up from last year, like I said, because there's sometime the ambulance was not there because of standbys. I think everybody hears that. And we're hoping that gets kind of corrected, but we'll see. I've included an incident chart to the report to show the kind of the graphics of how that all laid out last year. We did have a lot of training sessions last year. We're getting ready for this certification that the province has passed in July that will require all municipalities to have their fire departments certified to a certain level in certain areas in firefighting and technical rescue and all things we do. That's going to come up later on. It looks like probably July now this year before we can get that sorted out within the county. But we've had lots of regular training and then outside training with the county happening too. We also had 6 of our recruits pass certification this past year. So the 2021 class did their training in 2021 and then in 2022 they went and did their testing and passed all their certification. So that was a big thing to get all them through. We had to recruiting again this year and we have 6 new members that were chosen from 16 applicants. And these members are going to begin recruit training this Saturday in Moorfield, I believe. I'm pretty sure it is. And so they'll be going through February, March, April, May, June, testing in July to see if they can pass the certification. So we'll have a good group of new members all trained to the certification of NFPA. We also had a new command vehicle / pickup truck delivered this year. It was ordered in 2021, then we got in 22. And as council has already passed, we're going to make our Tanker 88 surplus because it's coming to the end of its life on the road. We had a bunch of our firefighters that were firefighters that didn't have their DZ licensing. They couldn't drive the fire trucks. We had got them through the testing last spring. And also our volunteers do participate in the fall fair, Santa Claus parade, turkey bingos, and like I said, shop with the cop. They still, with all they do, they still put a lot of energy and time into those really useful instances we do. And we also want to welcome Heidi Dorst to our team as our assistant. She's doing a great job with the software and getting everything in for us. And she's at the township here, and it's great to have her on board. I think that covers everything I had here.
Thanks, Chief. Questions for the chief on this report? Go ahead, Councilor Chamberlain.
Sorry. Rick, with the motor vehicle collisions, are there kind of hotspot areas where these accidents are happening, and what is the process of that? Because I'm not far from the Moorfield corner, and there seems to be a frequent, an event there, or at 11 and 7, or I know the 8th line and County Road 12, I think it was. I don't know. There was all of a sudden there was a number of these kind of similar locations. Are you noticing a trend within those? And then I know they put the traffic lights in at Parker. Is there a process for that, or does that report goes to county, or as far as safety concerns? on certain junctions? Thank you.
So a few years ago, I think you'd say it's going to be 5, it probably is more, I'm not sure, but we did a traffic study. We had a student, co-op student working for us that did work over summer and give him a project of going through all our records and finding out where the accidents all were. And so he took a map of our whole area, put the amount of accidents at each corner over a 10-year period, or 12-year period, I think it was. And so we determined that the S-Bends were number 1. The Parker was this road out here where the roundabout is now was number 2, and Parker was number 3. So we took that report to the county and then showed them how many calls we've been going to and where they were coming from. Of course, the county has made some changes there, and that has reduced the accidents. Like the roundabout was having one a year, bad one, for a long time. And since they put the roundabout in, I'm not sure, Mr. Mayor, do you know 7 years? Is that, 7 years? We've had one minor accident, that roundabout, a very minor accident in those 7 years compared to the terrible ones we had. The S-Bends have reduced down a lot with lights there, and Parker, except for the log truck last week, the Parker's been reduced down quite a bit too. So they have worked now, but you're right. The Moorfield corner has become the one that our biggest one for sure. Yeah.
And just to add to that, Councillor Tamlin, so the county looks at all these reports as well. They in fact just did the Roadmaster Action Plan last year, and they're looking at all these roads and intersections again. They worked on the S-band, even with the traffic lights put in, there were still some crashes. They worked on the lighting system to make sure that the timing was correct and right. And that has done a tremendous job of reducing collisions at that corner. They are aware of the Moorfield Road as well. And the S-band and Moorfield Road and Parker are currently all in the budget for a roundabout. So at some point in time in the next 10 years. Chief?
If I could make just one comment about the Moorfield corner. One thing we have noticed, myself and some of our first people on scene, is when we get there, the accidents usually happen when the person's gone to the stop sign and pulled out. That's been the last 3 or 4 for sure. That person always says to us, like, at the 4-way stop, I stopped and the person coming from Drayton didn't. Well, it's not a 4-way stop, it's a 2-way stop. So you don't want to, you hate to tell them that, but they're, and they went through
That
it.
was the same problem at Parker we had as
It was,
well, right?
yeah.
Same idea.
Yeah.
And of course, you were talking about the logging truck. That was a little bit of speed, a little bit of fog, the mishap there. I know I'd said to the chief, I had just gone through that corner 10 minutes previously prior to the crash. And it was about less than 100 meters. You couldn't see the light. So it was quite foggy. But that's why you're supposed to drive to conditions and not just keep it on 80 when you can't see that far in front of you. Any other questions, comments, Councillor Martin?
Just how about that Moorfield corner? It's going to be a difficult one to put a roundabout in simply because of the, what do you call it? Not the green space, but the river's running through there. It's the hill that seems to be the issue on the east side. Is the county looking at different options other than roundabouts, like shaving off that hill or doing things like that to try and mitigate? It's funny because even the one out here at 8 and 12, visibility was never an issue, right? You could see for a country mile approaching that intersection, and it was still the worst one. So I don't know what the options really would be up there, but like with that river running so close to that intersection, it's going to be a tough one to really navigate.
Yeah, that's why they have their engineers looking at it. And that one is quite out in distance. It's Parker and the S-Bend that are first that need to get done. So the other one, I just know that I was talking to the manager of roads and asked him about that specific intersection, and their initial thoughts are roundabout. But the engineers will look at how to do that, and that if there's a will, there's a way. They can make that roundabout work.
Is there to the conversation we were already having, would there be an opportunity in the interim to do advanced signage or I don't know what you call them, hidden intersections or flashing lights, something to warn traffic coming from Drayton about that particular intersection?
And we can certainly have that conversation again, just like we did with the S-Bend, just like we did with Parker, and that's why the traffic lights got in there. Just to keep having those conversations and the data that the chief provides to the county, and of course the conversations that we have around the county as well. And as chair of county roads now, I get those conversations quite a bit, so. Not to say I have any pull there, Councilor Martin, just be able to have those conversations. Anything else on the communique, the yearly review? Then I'll call the question. All those in favor then receiving it for information? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on to the Recreation Department. Moved by Councillor Reed, second by Councillor Martin, that the Township of Mapleton Council receive for information Recreation Report 2023-01 dated January 25th, 2023 regarding the before and after school program operating criteria for information. Amy.
Good afternoon, Council. The Recreation Department is really excited to report to all of you that we passed our annual operating criteria this past December. It is criteria that is done by the county. It is basically to ensure that our programs are quality programs. It's not special just to us. They go out to every authorized recreational program and licensed childcare center in Wellington County and Guelph, just to ensure that all the criteria is being met, or the majority of. And it will allow our families to also utilize fee subsidy should they need it from the county. So they're able to apply and be granted some fee subsidy if families are in need. So that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Amy. Questions then on this report to Amy? Then I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Moving on to item number 10. Moved by Councillor Martin, second by Councillor Reed, that bylaws numbered 2023-006 to 2023-010 be hereby ready first, second, and third time and finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with a corporate seal. Any questions or comments on any of these bylaws that we're about to do? So all in favor then? That's carried. We don't have anything on council's direction. Number 12, correspondence for council's information. And we do have the 12.1, which is an appreciation to the a letter that goes to the chief and to the fire department from Orange Helicopter. Chief, I get you want to talk about that a little bit, because you guys did a bang up job of helping Orange out there, and they're quite impressed with what's going on.
Yeah, it was quite a situation. It was an industrial accident, and of course, young man that was is here, an immigrant from Mexico. He and a bunch of young guys are running this operation for the company, and one young guy got into where he shouldn't have been, and he was trapped in a place where a compactor worked, and he was jammed in there. And they had the Orange Air Ambulance come in. It was quite a thing to try to get all the hydraulics and all the gates and everything loosened off, because they were all about 3-ton gates. So through a whole bunch of cooperation, we have one guy in our department that's a hydraulic guy, another guy's a mechanic. Everybody just got together and tore this thing apart, pulled all the compacted material out, and found where the legs were. And the air ambulance attendant says to us, he says, "You guys, we'll take care of the medical. You guys take care of the mechanical." And he said, "We're putting our life in your hands, more or less, with this young guy being in there." So we got him out safely, and it all worked out. And he went off the air ambulance. He did lose his legs. He sent me a picture from Victoria Hospital. He had gone down to Tim Hortons the next day or 2 days later, and was getting a coffee, and he gave the thumbs up from his wheelchair. So he's back in Listowel now, and they're going to look at prosthetics sometime, whenever that time comes about. So very fulfilling thing. And then the Orange Air Ambulance people phoned the township here on the Monday and said, "Can we get a contact with the fire department?" So I talked to her and said, she does all the correspondence for Orange Air. And she says, I said, "Was this something you guys always do, is send a regular letter appreciation?" She says, "No, the the paramedic that was in the ambulance says, I want that, everybody there, the paramedics from Guelph Wellington, the OPP for transporting blood back and forth and getting the appendages down to the London Hospital. He said, I want to thank them all for it. So that's where that letter came about, and very fulfilling to get the letter like that for sure.
Certainly is, Chief, and please congratulate and thank all the firefighters that were involved in that. I know it wasn't an ideal situation, and just the mechanics of that machine and having to make sure that it was safe to for medical personnel to work in and around to help this young fellow out. And if it wasn't for the firefighters and their expertise, things could have been different. So certainly congratulations to the firefighters and congratulating the force on behalf of council, please. Anything else from council on these? Correspondence for council information? Anybody else going to speak to anything else? Item number 13 then, notice of motion. Do we have any notices of motions to add today? I didn't receive any. We'll move to item number 14, notice of provision. It's there for you to review. And then we come down to item 15.1, another business. First thing we'll talk about in other business is the resolution. Moved by Councillor Tamlin, second by Councillor Ottens. Be it resolved that the township be able to create a new committee of council to give advice through council on matters relating to environmental stewardship within the township. This is moved by Councillor Tamlin. That was moved at the last council meeting. We're bringing it up today. Councillor Tamlin, you have time to speak to it.
Yeah, with the notion of forming an environmental stewardship committee, with climate change so central to our communities, to our economics and environment, and moving forward, and the movement that the county's making and citizens are asking for, it's prudent on our part to form a committee to work with the different sectors within the community, to look at our building practice, agriculture, the way we move around, the way we take care of our forests, and link it into all the other great initiatives and funding that's happening already as well. Yeah, there's also champions in our community as well. And I think it's a really important part of how we live and work in this community. So I think it's an essential group of people.
Thank you, Councillor Tamlin. Any other questions or comments on this notice of motion? Councillor Ottens.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Are there similar committees like this in other municipalities or at the county level that we could use as guidance, or would this be a leadership area that Mapleton's doing?
Certainly going to be a leadership area that Mapleton's doing. The county does have environmental stewardship part of the planning department. And that's they do a number of initiatives, which we certainly could partner with in some of the things they're doing. And they've been here and spoken to council in the past. And we'll be coming back again. But this is certainly an initiative for locally. I know we've had some interest locally from people in the community to work on environmental aspects to it. Councillor Tamlin is certainly involved in that kind of initiative, being that he teaches on it and has been doing it for a lot of years. But there are other townships that do have environmental stewardship type committees. So we wouldn't be the first ones, but certainly be one of the first townships in the county doing it. Councilor Martin.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a great idea. I think it's also an opportunity, for a small rural township that has a massive agricultural community to take the lead on something like this. I think the ag community gets ragged on by a lot of environmental groups unfairly. So I think that this could be a really good opportunity to turn that narrative around into something positive, because I really think that's what it is. And a lot of times environmental folks are very much based in urban areas, not in the country. So I think to have that perspective is a really cool opportunity.
I agree with you. Other questions, comments? Councillor Reed?
I also think this is a great idea, being the environment is such a forward thinking way these days. But also it'll allow us, working with township staff too, I think, to look at different ways of approaching replacements for even vehicles per se, as we go through the next couple of years of what the most efficient things are. And I think they would be able to give us really good advice on directions to head based on staff recommendations as well.
Thank you. Anything further? I read the motion. All those in favor then of starting the Environmental Stewardship Committee? That's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Tamlin, for bringing that forward. And if I remember correctly, Councillor Tamlin, you will be on that committee. Now that we passed that committee, it's part of the recommendations of who's on what committee, and that will be that'll be on you. So thank you so much. Any other business that we'd like to discuss at this time? Councillor Martin?
I did notice we had one other candidate for zone 2 up in the council's information part, but we should probably offer our congratulations to Wellington North Councillor Steve McCabe on the election to zone 2 at Roma. I think that's a pretty big achievement, and to have local representation on there is a fantastic. I think he takes over from Chris White, is it?
It's Chris White,
Yeah.
he did
Yeah.
it for 19 years.
Yeah. So that's fantastic to
Very
keep it in
good.
the family.
Yeah, and I did congratulate him when I was at Roma, or on behalf of council. And certainly he is quite happy to be able to represent the county and rural, because he's really big in the rural. So he's really happy to be representing us on that committee, and he'll do a fantastic job. Speaking of Roma, we were down there. We did a couple delegations. One of the delegations that we did was when it comes to the farm tax rebate. And we went there with the Ontario Federation of Agriculture and with Kendra Hart, the Director of Finance for the county. And we had a good conversation about the losses, not just for Mapleton in the county, but for rural communities right across Ontario, and how the farm tax rebate is putting us at a disadvantage compared to urban cities and regions. So we had that good conversation and asked the deputy minister there to, it was a deputy minister, wasn't it? Parliamentary assistant, sorry. Parliamentary assistant that we reached out and said, he said, what do you want? And we said, well, we want to work with you to further along this conversation. We're not looking for a benefit just to Mapleton or the county. We're looking for a benefit to all of Ontario. And that's why we're here. We were here with the Ontario Federation of Agriculture to work as a partnership to come to some kind of better solution for rural municipalities and how we're financed. So that was a really good delegation. Second delegation we had was with Minister Lecce on the childcare. It was a really good delegation as well. We were there with the Catholic School Board, with the county again, about the childcare. And we did receive some positive feedback from the minister. And in fact, I think if we had an open space right now, he would be giving us money, because he sees the need that we have here in Mapleton. He wasn't just, blowing smoke. He looked at it and said, you guys need a need. What can we do right now? And of course, we don't have a facility ready or any open space to put a childcare in right now. But he certainly said, look, let's look for plan B. Let's figure out another way of doing this. So we will continue to work with the county and with MPP Matt Ray and with the Minister Lecce to work on getting that childcare here in the community. And it's certainly not going to be something that's coming here tomorrow, but we'll work on having that in the next couple of years. Anything else from Roma that people want to speak to? Councillor Ottens?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to clarify on the farm tax rebate thing, because a few people have commented in the past, just misunderstanding what we're lobbying for. We're not lobbying for the farmers to pay up the 75% we're missing. This is not what we're going for at all. We're going for a more fair reimbursement from the province for that lost amount, which used to be covered by the entire province, just for those people listening at home or whatever. Just, I don't want it to be misunderstood that we're lobbying the province to have the farmers pay up again. This is certainly not why we're doing these things. It's a different way of funding that we're looking for.
And that's why we went with the
Yep.
Ontario Federation of Agriculture as a
Yep.
partnership. Because we certainly are speaking for the agricultural community as well. And we don't want to go back to the way it was, as Councillor Otten pointed out, but we do need a better path forward. And that's what we're advocating for with the OFA. Similar to what last term of council, the OFA was here and did a study with Mapleton, and they presented that study, and that was presented to the minister's office. Anything further? I know Councillor Tamlin had a great time at the Roma and learned so much. He came back so excited. He sent off 1,000 emails and anything.
For me, it was very interesting to listen to the really big players in the energy system and looking at low carbon transitions in general through the province. Where we stand on decommissioning Pickering nuclear power and the move toward electrifying basically our energy system. So there was the electrical operation systems operator there. It was Hydro One and Enbridge, and they all told their story about mapping that journey out of transition. One of the most exciting parts of that for me was the Enbridge have their infrastructure already, and they want to kind of replace the natural gas with what's called renewable natural gas, which is basically methane and biodigestions is already happening on farms. They gave examples of municipalities. There was a farm in Middlesex County, a dairy farm was actually heating 1,300 homes in that municipality as well. So looking at agriculture and looking at kind of our energy needs moving forward, there's actually solutions in some of the problems. So it was really interesting to see on the larger scale players and what they were thinking.
Thank you, Councillor Tamlin. Like I said, came back energized from that. Anything else for other business? All right. We do not have a closed session. So we'll move on to item 17.1, moved by Councillor Reid, second by Councillor Martin. That bylaw number 2023-011 being a bylaw to confirm all actions and proceedings of the council of the corporation of the township of Mapleton be hereby read a first, second, and third time, signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with a corporate seal. All those in favor? That's carried. We are now adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your participation.